What's up, everybody? Metal Dave Glessner here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Our guest today, two members from one of my all-time favorite bands, the Riverboat Gamblers, from right here in Austin, Texas, by way of Denton, Texas. They are celebrating the reissue of their second album, Something to Crow About. It's coming out on vinyl in October-ish. I think you can pre-order it online now. Garageland.com, riverboatgamblers.com. You can also find the Riverboat Gamblers on their social media accounts where they're promoting the heck out of it, so you can find links to purchase it there as well. What a great album. It's been one of my favorite records forever. It's been out of print on vinyl forever. Something to Crow About. If you haven't heard it, it is, in my eyes and ears, a masterpiece. It's upbeat, punk rock, good time. High energy, explosive. It's melodic, catchy. The thing I love about the Gamblers is they're classified as punk rock, but they are very accessible because they never lose sense of their melody, even though they're playing at 100 miles an hour. There's hooky, catchy choruses. Just a great, great album, and everything by them is great. But Something to Crow About, probably their pivotal record. And we have Mike Wiebe, vocalist Mike Wiebe, and guitarist Fadi El-Assad with us today to talk about the 20th anniversary reissue of Something to Crow About, as well as a little bit about the Gamblers' history.
Obviously, you're the resident Gamblers lorist, if you will, and I envy you, because I don't know a whole lot about them other than I know that they reached some kind of legendary status not long after they got to Austin. I remember there was a lot of lip service about them as like it was late 90s and early, it would have been early 2000s, I believe. But I think I want to say I'd heard of them before they actually were residential Austinite.
Yes.
And so I want to say they probably hate this, maybe not, but when would you say they would have reached legendary status? Because I feel like they're a touring band. They're not afraid of shit, obviously, and they're doing it for the right reasons. Would you say that with their humble successes, would you call them legendary in that scene, that description that you used?
Yeah, certainly in Texas. The album that they're reissuing came out in 2003. Something to Crow About is the title, and that's the album that put them on the map. And it was originally released on Gearhead Records, so it had some distribution. Gearhead had a really good roster at the time. The Dragons were on that bill. Maybe Throw Rag was on that bill. They had a really good roster of sort of these real, like, garagey underground punk rock bands.
Let me ask you this. Sorry to interrupt. Let me ask you this, because I don't want this intro. I want to get to the interview, but yeah. I feel like maybe this record, and I don't know, it's an innocent question. Was this after its initial release when they were young when they put this shit out? So This is a reissue we're talking about.
Right.
After a hot minute, was that record all of a sudden hard to find, or has it been, out of print for a long time?
My understanding is it's been out of print on vinyl for 20 years now.
Okay.
I don't know why it came to an end at some point. But
vinyl wasn't hot when these guys came out swinging.
It probably was among their audience, though. That's the thing.
You're right.
That's a vinyl audience. Yeah. It's a great album, and I like to tell people the first time I walked in on the Riverboat Gamblers, they were already on stage. They were already doing their thing. I had never seen or heard of them before. And I immediately was like, oh my God, this is like watching 5 Angus Youngs. They were all going crazy on stage, super energetic, so entertaining. And singer Mike Wiebe is known for just, he'll come out in the audience, he'll run across the bar, he'll swing from the rafters. He's been injured a number of times because of this, but they are the definition of entertaining. And they'll be doing some shows to support the reissue of Something to Crow About. Those are coming up in October, and maybe there'll be some more towards the end of the year. So they're back in a big way with something to crow about.
I love it. I love it when this happens to a band that has some tenor and some stories to tell and some scars, obviously, to prove.
Yeah, more than a few.
Yeah, and another thing, you mentioned in the chat that we had today that Mike had been injured, and the fan base put the money together to pay his doctor bills. And I just want to say this: there's only one word. That's love.
Yeah,
that's love. That's exactly the definition of love. I don't know you, but you're going to pay my doctor bills. What?
Yeah.
So I just want to say there's something. Music and the art, it's words and sound. It's wood and wire and electricity, but it's intellectual property. And when you put that shit in a bucket and throw it up in the air and everyone eats it, including you, and you thrive and you survive because of that, of just shit you made up.
Yeah.
Fucking magic.
Yeah, the crowd rallied.
Yeah,
I thought that was going to be the one to put him out of the game. He ended up with a broken rib that punctured a lung, and he was pretty messed up for a while. But he's back. Has been back for a number of years. He's done numerous shows since then, and we're just happy to have him today on the show. And we're happy to see this album reissued, the 20th anniversary reissue of Something to Crow About. Mike Wiebe and Fadi El-Assad from the Riverboat Gamblers on the Talk Louder podcast.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever met you guys, but I've been hearing your names and the name of your band forever. So
yeah, Jason.
And I work with Ian, so I'm in trouble there too. So
your brother's an old friend. He's a good friend.
Yeah, my brother is fucking badass. He's rock star. Yeah.
I know. I see him skating those bowls still. And I was like, I can't.
He's fighting cancer and doing that. So he's just fucking killing it. He's just a fucking Viking. It's unbelievable. I would have laid down already. Yeah. We could have our own Randolian barbecue McMaster fucking festival right here and now.
Yeah. Let's do
it. Right. Anyway, good to meet you guys.
Good to meet you. Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, so before we start talking about the reissue of Something to Crow About, let's do a little history lesson first. You guys are originally from Denton, Texas. You two are the remaining core members of the band. You've been in Austin for 25 plus years.
Almost like 18-ish, so almost 20, 18, 19
Okay,
years.
almost 20. So what was the impetus for leaving Denton and coming to Austin?
For me, it was, we talked about it for about a year or two before it happened, right, Mike? I remember us talking about it.
Yeah.
It felt, it was always awesome, but it felt a little small and suffocating after a while. There's a lot of ghosts left behind there, and Austin felt like there was more here for us. But I guess it's different for everyone. I don't know, Mike, what do you think?
I can easily fall into a velvet rut, and I probably would have stayed in Denton if they hadn't moved up. I was the last guy to move up, but I'm really glad. But I loved Austin though. I just was I'd move, money. But Austin was always just the coolest at the time, the coolest scene of all the garage rock stuff that was going on here was everything that we wanted to be around, full time. So, and then plus also there's just more to do. There's just more to do in Austin. It was so much the film scene with the Draft House and all that stuff back when the Draft House was this tiny little thing that was throwing these, Music Mondays,
Weird
and
Wednesdays,
Eric Tuesdays and Weird Wednesdays and stuff like that. There's just so much more going on in Austin that you could kind of, at the time, kind of feel like you can be this really you move down. I mean, you still can, but like you could be like a working artist kind of, and just kind of like live and breathe doing stuff every single night, as opposed to Denton, where if there was something going on in Denton, it was because it was a show that we were probably throwing, or like a crew of like our scene was like putting something together and throwing it. And it was just like kind of the idea of just getting to go do stuff that was organically happening, as opposed to being the ones throwing the party all the time.
That's what I kind of, for not like ever, but for, you know, off and on, I would hear about the Denton scene and being this really cool, almost like there's a house party every week that's off the hook. It was fucking hardcore. This happened and that happened. And my nephew was part of that. He's much, obviously much younger, but he was part of that scene over the past, like, probably 15 years, because he's like, you know, going to be 40 soon, it seems like. But anyway, and I would always hear about it through him and just friends and stuff. And is Denton, you know, does it have its moments?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, when we were coming up in the 90s, especially, I remember the 90s. Denton always feels like 90s to me, because of that's when we were coming up. That's when I was coming up, and it was it was the best place to be. Like it was, it's something happening all the time, and house shows were going nuts.
Yeah,
there were these. There was a fake fraternity called called Delta, because they needed to be in the Greek system in school there, in the colleges there, in order to get a frat house. So they called it Delta. They just said, all right, we're Delta. And they rented out this house. It's called the Delta Lodge, and they had put on shows there. And then our friends lived in houses where they put on shows. Mike lived at a house where he put on shows at one point. Our original bassist, lived in a house that put on shows at one point. I mean, there were just house shows everywhere, and our friends had houses, and it was awesome. I mean, there was just people skating, skateboarding up and down the street, drinking on the streets. There was always something going on. It was, I mean, I think I spoke earlier. When I said it was small and a little suffocating, I didn't mean it. Denton's always going to have a soft spot in my heart. Always. Yeah. It felt at the time when we moved here, we just started picking up a little steam. And Graham started booking us at Emo's a bunch, and we started playing with all these Austin bands, and it seemed like it was Denton, but with more. And we wanted to see what was happening at the place that happened.
Yeah, that's kind of the juice I was trying to get you guys to put together. It's like you were bringing your, not to go, you know, pro on you, but you were bringing your product here because it felt right, and you guys were fitting in.
That was the perfect place to kind of get the chops up to be able to move down here. Like, I don't know, you know, if you're like a brand new band starting out in Austin at that time, and there was so much music and stuff happening, it might have been hard to get booked a lot. You know, you might have been able to get booked, like, you know, once every, you know, couple months between like 3 or 4 clubs or whatever. But in Denton, it was like, well, we're putting on all the shows and we're connected with everything. And then the bands that are coming through, like we were like, you know, one of the handful of bands within our genre that like were right to peg in. So we were playing all the time. So we probably got a lot more, you know, live show practice hours in. Even if they were house shows, we got like more of that proving ground time. So when we got here, we were really ready to kind of we had the hours to kind of be a little bit maybe more ahead of some people.
That's interesting. Yeah. So how this record that's getting reissued, how old were you guys when you were writing these tunes and then recording it, and then, you know, and then kind of give us because I know Dave has a lot of shit to unleash upon you. I just wanted to get this kind of going right now.
I just did some quick math. I was 23 when we were writing it, and then just turned 24 when we came down to record it. So we were still living in Denton. We drove down to Sweatbox to do it. We did the first one here too.
Did you do it at Sweatbox when it was on San Jacinto there and Street or whatever? Yeah, wow.
It's right above the Mekong Delta, I think, right? There's wasn't there that Vietnamese restaurant there called Mekong Delta?
I think so. Yeah, the Sons of Hercules did some stuff in there, and Mike Maricondo worked out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Randy had a band and I had a band that were both rehearsing across the hall, down the hall from there.
Yeah.
Ben Burton and Bobby Landgraf's place. So,
and then that whole place there was a fire.
Oh, that's right.
Fire somewhere within the complex, and then all the water that they shot in like flooded and destroyed everything. We had a practice space behind and under, and our practice space got like all water damaged and stuff.
Yeah. I was downtown when that happened. I remember somebody came and got me. I was at a show and somebody said, the practice space is on fire. And I ran down, just running down 6th. And I got there and it had already been put out. And I remember like trying to wasn't even thinking. I was like, all our gear. And I ran past one of the little police lines. And so it was some cop like grabbed me like, you can't go in there. I remember that.
Yeah, my baby's in there.
Yeah, Les Paul, you don't understand.
My babies are in there.
Right. So you put out your debut album that I was showing here just a minute ago, and Tim Kerr produced it, and that's kind of a big deal for you guys to get Tim Kerr involved at an early point in your career when you're still kind of up and coming, not really known that well. How did Tim Kerr enter the picture? Because he also produced something to crow about, but it started with the first record, right?
Yeah.
How did he come into your orbit?
We asked everyone it felt like everybody in Austin knew him, and we asked everybody to ask him.
I was going to say, I can't really remember how we did that. How did we do that?
I think it was just like, before we moved to Austin though, we were coming down like at least probably twice a month to like play shows, and if not twice a month to play shows, and maybe even more to just hang out or to go to a show, because the cool shit that we were into was coming to Austin, and only half of it was coming to Denton, Dallas. So there's always a reason to come down here anyway. So we knew a lot of people that knew him. So I think we just kind of like had put it into enough people's ears to ask him about it, that he agreed to.
So the second album is what we're here to talk about today, Something to Crow About. In my book, a masterpiece of an album. Oh. And now you're reissuing it. It's the 20th anniversary. Is it reissued on vinyl only, or is it being reissued in other formats?
The vinyl just came out, but are we doing CDs and tapes? Did we talk about that with them?
We can. I don't know. We haven't yet. I guess we probably should.
Right now, it's just vinyl. We've got the 3 different colors. Yeah,
stream it. We remastered it, and the stream that's up is remastered.
Yeah, so it's right now it's on vinyl, 3 different colors, 20th anniversary, Something to Crow About. Tell me, are you repackaging it in any way? Are you staying true to the original packaging as far as the photos and the lyrics? Are you adding any new goodies to this, or what?
There's nothing really new, but we did a little bit. We gave it a little facelift. It's okay. So the cover got
new font.
Yeah. And there really that's about it. Everything else is the same in the insert. We wanted to kind of keep it. I think there might be just a little blurb from Tim in there. That might be just a little extra thing, but really it's just we wanted to have how it was, just kind of like change the things that bothered us about the art and about the insert maybe, but it's really the same photos, and we wanted to keep the vibe the same and just have it like, this is the record. This is what came out 20 years ago. It's here again because it's been out of print for so long.
Yeah.
The font looked too much like Wendy's. It looked too much like the Wendy's font.
I didn't want to bring it up. Yeah, sure. It did.
It's hot and juicy.
Yeah. It's like
think about a spicy chicken sandwich, man. I'm trying to rock it.
Now, on the original, Fadi, you're credited as Freddie Castro. That
was the change, yes.
That changed.
Did you change that?
So,
yeah.
Tell me about the evolution from Freddie Castro to Fadi El-Assad.
There wasn't much of an evolution. When we first started, we all had what we call them our porn names. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's some dumb young dude stuff. Just you get your first pet is your first name, and your mom's maiden name is your last name. But the thing is, Castro is not even my mom's maiden name. That was one of my grandparents' family friends, and I thought Freddie Castro sounded pretty cool, so I just used that. And after a while, we started to drop it and just use our real names. So I wanted to change it because I haven't. No, it's some weird antiquated thing from way back when,
Yeah. I think my first name on the first record was Tico Buller.
Yeah.
And occasionally Tico Bueller, it's just like just some dumb thing that you don't think of past
next year.
Week, I mean, there was no idea that 25 years later he's still going to be doing, that. I don't know, it just I never considered how that would be 25 years later when you're trying to build a catalog of stuff and have it all kind of interconnect. And
is Lee Ving's real name Leaving?
I don't think so.
See what I mean? So
yeah.
He got stuck with that. It's kind of a joke, but I love it. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. This is cool though. Like he picked, you got to be real lucky to be, 19 years old and pick a cool name that you can actually live with. John Doe did, John Doe managed to pick a good one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. But here, the thing is, my name, people, when the record came out and we started getting a little juice or whatever, and people started taking notice, dudes would come up to me after shows and start calling me Freddie and talk to me and call me Freddie. It was just so awkward. I didn't think like there's no forethought. I didn't think that this thing was going to stick or this, any of this was going to work. So it was just awkward after a while. So I just, kind of dropped that.
Especially if they were
in the insert, you're still Mike Tico Buller.
Oh, am I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think to change it even.
Well, Tico, that's not bad. That still sounds good all these years later. So
yeah,
I think you picked one you could live with. And even Freddie Castro. I mean, you could have done worse. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the songs. To celebrate the reissue of this album, you did a new video of Rattle Me Bones.
Yeah.
And in that video, there's clips of, your past history, past gigs, et cetera, et cetera. When you're putting something like that together after all these years, what memories come back to you? Is there one in specific or just sort of memories in general that come back when you look back on that many years of history?
It was a lot. I mean, I edited it, and I pulled a lot of footage and was just going through. And at one point I'm glad I did it a little bit late, so there was a deadline, and I had to kind of like bulldoze through to get it done and just like really kind of differentiate myself from the nostalgia of the moment. But it was weird. There was a couple of times things that I saw that made me weirdly like kind of emotional almost, because it's just weird to see, just to think back into the mind of those kids those kids that were that young doing that thing, and also the physicality that I had back then, that is like, you're gonna hurt yourself, I thought a number of times.
Yeah.
And I did.
And you did, yeah. And we'll get to that in a minute. But
I did. I remember I wrote Mike, Mike, I remember you asked, you said send in whatever old pictures and everything you got, any video or whatever, and when you sent it, when I saw it, I wrote the guys. I was like, I think I wrote y'all. I said, I'm having a lot of feelings watching this stuff, because there's about now, being in my, I'm middle aged. I'm just gonna say I'm a middle aged man now, and it's thinking about being 22 years old and just not caring about anything but playing music, and I remember that guy, and I remember being that guy, but it's also like a separate guy sometimes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really cool to watch. Yeah.
It's what they mean when they say seems like a lifetime ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's do a little random track by track on the Something to Crow About record. We just talked a little bit about Rattle Me Bones, but what's what? Tell me, what was the inspiration behind that song? That's a great one. Everything on this album, by the way, I'd say 80% of it is still in your set list today. Is that accurate? Close?
Play a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of it.
There you go. That tells you right
That's
there
a good
how well
sign.
it stood up. Yeah. So tell me what's the story behind the song What's What?
What do you think, Mike?
It just seemed like some real, some sassy Texas person. I'll tell you what's what.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I can't remember where I got that from.
Is it Stan Rowe?
Probably like someone who like I worked with at Kmart or something. I overheard them saying back like when I was in high school, like I'll tell you what's what. And then just kind of pulling into, I was really into the movie Jaws. So it's all kind of became a little bit of a Jaws metaphor with, I think we're going to need a bigger boat and all the shark imagery and stuff like that.
Yeah. Man, that is so cool when you play that live and the whole audience yells, I think we're going to need a bigger boat. Going back to when you were a kid and you came up with that, did you ever imagine you'd hear a room full of people shouting that back at you and all these years later? How cool
I didn't
is
even
that?
know. I didn't even like Jaws is such like it's an old movie at this point that I was like, I don't know if people like this movie as much as but I don't even know if, it might be
in the theater. Me and Randy sat in the front row, saw it in the theater.
Oh man,
when it came out. It's like 70s,
amazing.
dude. We were like 7 years old or some shit.
Yeah.
It was fucking great. Living in a coastal town where we go surfing and shit,
Yeah.
Tell me about
we were in Corpus Christi.
Oh, you were in Corpus. Oh, that's right. That's right. You didn't. Yeah, he lived in Santa Cruz for a while.
Yeah, he was out there for a while.
That's where we first got to know him, actually.
Yeah, he went out there in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, and stayed through the 90s and came back and then went back again. But we'll talk about that. This is your life, Randolian.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tell me about Sparks and Shots.
Actually, What's What was kind of half written in Austin. I don't know if you remember, Mike. We were at Can's house after a show, and I had his acoustic, and I was like, I got this little riff thing, and you came and we were sitting down and kind of going over stuff. So that was an Austin-born song.
Oh wow, I don't remember that at all. That's crazy.
Who's Stan Rose? He's credited in the liner notes, and he says, what does he say? I'll tell you what, or he says what, or something like that.
Stan Rose says, I'll tell you what. Stan is Austin icon. He's one of the owners of the Yellow Jacket bar. Yeah, and was kind of he was like, I don't know if he's the one of the people who talked to Tim Kerr for us, but he was kind of our Austin conduit. He always lived in Austin, or he lived in LA too for a while, but like he was like one of the guys that like was one of our early Austin friends that kind of made Austin seem like this, house of debauch, magical excitement and stuff,
Yeah. And it was.
Yeah.
Tell me about Sparks and Shots. What's the story behind that one?
Yeah.
Oh God.
There's a beverage before Four Loko. There was the first like, it was this malt liquor with sweet energy drink in it.
Yeah, real sweet.
And what was it called?
It's called Sparks.
Okay.
It's called Sparks.
Okay, it's coming together now.
I remember drinking that again because I was like 20 or whatever it was, and we would drink Sparks, this sugary, gross malt liquor, not real beer, and had caffeine, had a bunch of caffeine in it.
Tons of caffeine.
Yeah, it was horrible, and but I would drink it all the time, and shots were always in the mix too. So the song was about. It's kind of our, isn't it? A little bit of our like getting fucked up like song, like that. Yeah. Those type of tunes. It was one of those.
Right on.
The idea, just kind of thought it'd be funny to write a song about this awful liquor, and then liqueur, whatever it was, this awful malt liquor. But then like years later, we hit up the Spark. We were like, we wrote this. We should see if we should get sponsored or whatever. And they're like,
I think they contacted us.
oh, did they?
They did. I think somebody else, like somebody found it or sent it to them, or they got a hold of it. Because I remember that I don't think we tried to get in touch with, I don't think we were that savvy.
Yeah, probably not.
I think they got in touch with us and wanted to do something, and they started sending us cases of this stuff.
Yeah.
We couldn't drink it fast enough.
We
Oh, and
met
it was
them-
in the trailer. And it was so hot on
It
one
was in
tour.
Las Vegas. Yeah.
Yes, some of the cans exploded.
Oh,
This
Yeah.
sticky, gross malt liquor.
They
that
met
was-
us in Vegas with so much product that we couldn't fit all of it in our trailer was packed with gear and stuff. And they gave us so much that like there wasn't any room at some point. So we were just giving out 6-packs of Sparks to various homeless people in Las Vegas. And I like to think that there was some sort of a insane crime wave as we left Vegas of homeless people just spinning orange tornadoes.
that could have been your Sparks Part 2.
Yeah.
Gamblers were meeting like crime spikes.
Sparks
Again,
Shots, the sequel.
Another bit of inspiration you thought you'd never have to live with for 25 years, right?
Yeah, yeah. But now, yeah, when you do this song now, there's no one now, under the age of 40 as familiar with Sparks in any way.
Well, the
in any
song,
way, shape.
the song goes over great live. You still play it, and people love it, and that's the beauty of it. It's like you don't even have to know what the subject matter is. If the song is kicking your ass, it's a great song, regardless, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about Ice Water. That's another fan favorite.
Oh yeah.
Just
That
a
one's
happy
dark.
suicide song. Just
A happy suicide song.
a happy suicide song, a little poppy suicide song.
It is dark.
I'm trying to even remember. Something about just trying to write stuff that was a little edgy back then or something. I thought that was pretty edgy material, I guess.
I think maybe were you starting to write kind of little bit like not personal stuff like not about suicide, but about
whatever, depression and kind of stuff like that. That was probably the start of like less of a party anthem and more of like, let's see if we can write something about just being depressed or something like that. But trying to, that I think especially when you first start writing songs, is you kind of taking just wild swings in a direction, like just like the very idea of like, oh, this guy wrote this cool band that I like has a kind of serious song. Like, how do you do that? And like, okay, I'm going to take this real big swing in that direction. So it's maybe a little, I think if I were to write something like that now, it'd probably be a lot more subtle, but that's probably what makes it so cool is that even all this years later, definitely if people still like it too, but yeah.
I think that's one of the things about your music. It's like you always, regardless of the subject matter, you have this very upbeat, contagious energy.
Yeah.
And so frantic and so happy and so feel good that you don't even know what the subject matter is, or unless you like study the lyrics or whatever. But you just get wrapped up in this ball of energy and the good time of it all, and everything else just kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your lyrics from back then are like the song that you write today compared to the songs on this record that's, 20 years old-ish, right? The lyrics, are you able to like still relate personally in any way, or was it just some garbledy-gook because you wanted to be, you wanted to like break shit or whatever it was,
Yeah. I think
like that would have to do with your age, and now that you're not that age anymore, it's kind of,
yeah, I think that a lot of it's some of the same like thematically, but it was at that age, you're coming at it from much more of a blunt kind of,
your filter is different.
Yeah, absolutely. The filter is different, but a lot of that stuff of like either wanting to party or wanting to, be angry about, because a lot of the songs are kind of being about angry about this, that, or the other. It's the same thematically, it's just kind of through a different filter and maybe trying to refine the language or refine the actual thing you're angry about. Because I think there's a lot of stuff about that age and just kind of being lost and angry and not really knowing why, because I was just too young to have figured it out and too immature to have figured it out. Because even though I was like mid-20s, I was still real immature.
And some of us still are.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I'm not saying that. Yeah.
Let's do one more song and then we'll jump ahead to a couple of last questions. I got to ask you about Lottie Mae, because it's the one that it ends the album. It's the one song that is sonically different than all the rest. It's almost an old saloon, Western flavored, cowboy song or something like that. Tell me about that one.
I wanted that's because I remember when, after recording it, it wasn't how there was something I was like, it doesn't feel the way I wanted it to sound. And so and we went track by track and trying to do this and trying to do that. And at one moment I told Tim and Brian Nelson was engineering, just drench the whole thing in reverb, like the entire song, not by track. Not by individual track, but by the entire song, just drench it.
The mix.
Yeah, exactly. The mix, the whole mix. And that was what I was looking for. It was like this, it was that sleepwalk. There's that spooky 50s vibe to it, that tiny
surf rock stuff. Yeah.
With that too, yeah. That's when it finally came alive to me, is when we just drenched the whole thing and kind of tweaked the EQ a little bit, but I'm talking about drenched it in reverb. And that's when I was like, this is it. This is what it should sound like. That was the one.
So where did the lyrics come from on that one, Mike?
It's totally, entirely, well, not entirely, but mostly about a Harry Crews book called Feast of Snakes, about living in a small, the book's about people that live in this like college football, tiny little, I don't know if it's Texas, but tiny little South town where there's a big rattlesnake roundup. And I connected with it so much because it was like a very much like, this is an adult book for intelligent people, but it's brutal and just gnarly and fucked up. And something about the small town aspect of it, this small town that kind of exists to feed the lives of ex-football players. It exists. It felt there's something Denton that it kind of connected with a little bit. And growing up in a small, alienated in a small town, and it's just super. It was just such like a brutal. It blew me away. I didn't know. I didn't even know that there were books like that. I think that was the first. Like I had never read like Cormac McCarthy or I'm trying to think of who else, but that was kind of like my entree into that kind of Southern Gothic fucked up literature. And it just blew me away so much at the time that it thematically felt perfect with the music that Fadi had written.
Yeah. And it makes a great closer to the record. And if I'm not mistaken, last time I saw you played it live. So that one also lives on. So, Mike, tell me, we got to ask you, I was there at South by Southwest when you punctured a lung.
Yeah.
It's not the first of your long list of injuries. So
yeah, but probably the worst.
Probably the worst. And the cool thing is, people should know this. What I thought was amazing was that I don't know how the word went out, but your fans basically rallied up the money and paid for your medical bills, either all of it or most of it or whatever. But it was an incredible outpouring of support to help take care of you after that injury.
Yeah, it definitely saved my financial life for sure.
Yeah, so
I don't know what I'd be doing if that hadn't happened.
So for people that haven't seen you, I mean, you're known for swinging from the rafters. You run across the bar. You stand on tabletops. You're very physical, and you've, because of it, you've had a number of injuries. I was curious to know, have you ever when you're touring, do you ever walk into a venue for the first time and kind of scout it during sound check, going, okay, what can I climb on here? Because around your hometown venues, you're familiar with the place, but do you ever walk into a place in a strange city and go, okay, how am I going to put on a show tonight? What's there to hang off of or climb on?
I think I used to a lot more. Now I'm not. I mean, I still get physical when I'm feeling it. There's never. I mean, the main thing is, like, I never really planned anything out. It was always just kind of like, I see a thing, I'm going to do it. I feel like it, and I never really, which is probably explains a lot of the injury stuff, because I never really had any kind of a plan or any, there's with any of that stuff, I never was like, I'm going to do this on this. I mean, sometimes I'll be like, maybe I'll go out with Lottie May. Like, a lot of times I like to go out into the crowd and kind of, because it's so ballady, it's fun to kind of go out in there and do that. But for any of that other stuff, like jumping on speakers or jumping off stuff, there's not usually much of like and on this cue, we do this. It's just something that I was feeling or not feeling at the time. So, I mean, I'll notice how tall, and definitely now I'll notice, like, yeah, this is a real fucking tall stage now. But, and that'll enter my mind a little bit more, but I never like made plans of like song 4, it's off of the amp or whatever or anything like that.
Choreography.
Yeah, that didn't. Yeah, I don't have
no story.
Streisand coming out. Yeah.
Tell me, guys, what do you think I could get for this on eBay?
Oh.
For those who are listening and not watching, I'm holding up. This is the very first thing you ever released, isn't it?
Yes. It might cost you more to ship it than you'll get for it on eBay.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is a 45 of Jenna Is a No-Show and
Mean Motor Machine.
Mean Motor Machine, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
And I gotta say,
98-ish, 99, 98, 99, somewhere around there.
Somewhere in there, yeah. And I remember the first time I saw you guys, I walked into Beerland and you were already on stage, and I saw you and my mind was blown, and I was like, who are these guys? And you were still living in Denton at the time. And somebody told me they're a band from Denton. They're called the Riverboat Gamblers. And so I made a point to come see you every time you were back in town. And then when you moved to town, I'm like, all right, they're local now. They're going to be playing all the time. And I went out to every gig I could, and I still do. So speaking of gigs, any plans to celebrate the reissue of Something to Crow About? Are we playing this in its entirety? Or are you playing some shows at least so people can come out and buy it at the merch booth? What's next?
October 14th in Austin at Hotel Vegas. I don't know if we should announce that yet, but whatever. Well, I just said it. So
this episode won't air for a little while, so you're
it's out before then.
Fine. Right. No one's gonna sue us.
Yeah, we're doing a string of shows. Yeah, 14th, October 14th, and we're working on quite a few other ones. Out of town, out of state. But yeah, the idea is to do crow shows. Yeah.
So where can people buy the album in the meantime if they can't make it to one of your gigs to buy it off the merch stand? Where can they get it online?
Gamblers. Is it Gamblers Forever, forevergamblers.com?
Just our website, or you mean like the merch?
Yeah, or our website. Yeah, riverboatgamblers.com.
No, did we get a new one? Because last time it was just the riverboatgamblers.com. Professional band at work.
Yeah.
Hang on. It's
That's it, riverboatgamblers.com. But if you go to Gamblers Forever, Forever Gamblers, it'll take you to the merch store. But you can get to the merch store through the thing. We're not good at this, clearly. We didn't get into this for business.
I got it.
People, at the very least, people
can get it. I know how to get it. You did great.
Yeah.
at the very least, people can follow your social media stuff, and you're posting and promoting it.
Totally.
There,
So the
Totally.
label that reissued this, that put it out, do they have like a Bandcamp, or do they have a merch store that people can also get it through, or is it specifically band site?
It's band. We put it out ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
We got help with the group called Cobra Side, helped us put it all together.
Yeah, Ian mentioned that, and that sounds like a good move just to help get it up and out.
Yeah. We're not businessmen.
Well,
let me ask you guys this: when you go to shows and there's bands doing a record, because this is the thing I'm always thinking about. Do you want to hear a record from front to back in order, or do you like it if it's split up within a set? If we play all the songs, but it's within a set.
For me, I think part of here's the journalism in me using a word I just made up. The specialness of playing an album in its entirety is hearing it in sequence from start to finish.
Sequence from start to finish.
I'd be happy the other way, don't get me wrong, but if I had my preference, I would want to hear the album in its entirety and then close the show with a sprinkle of some other stuff.
I might be a little too close to the question, because I was going to say the opposite. That it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think too, I'll say this specifically about something to crow about. There's a reason that's one of my favorite records, and it is because of the sequencing of it. The flow of that thing is such a good time. I would hate for it to be interrupted, even though if it's interrupted by another Gambler song, it's going to be another great song.
Yeah.
If you were telling me that you were going to play that album in its entirety, my preference would be to hear it from start to finish.
That sounds like a good piece of candy for a fan that's been, following you guys around for so long and was into that when it came out. That have this new upgraded issue. That would be fun. I get it. I get that.
Yeah. Well, something to crow about 20th anniversary reissue on vinyl. You can find it online. Just look up riverboatgamblers.com or find the Riverboat Gamblers on social media and look for they're promoting it there, and some shows coming up in October. You can look for that album at the band's merch booth. I'm stoked that it's being reissued. What a treat. When I heard that thing was coming out, I was like, yes, I've been waiting for this for a long, long time, because it's a great album. You're one of my favorite bands. I've said it to Jason, and I've said it to anyone who listen. You're the best live band on the planet, and I mean that with all due respect to all my other friends that are in bands. So go see him, go buy the album. We thank you for being here. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our special guests today, Fadi El-Assad and Mike Wiebe from the Riverboat Gamblers on the Talk Louder podcast.
Hey. Thank you.